Mirror, mirror on the wall, how badly did Disney's new Snow White flop after all?
I love this. It's off to court we go.
Yeah.
Disney faces discrimination lawsuit over Snow White snub of Little People actors who were replaced by cartoons in woke $215 million or pound live action remake of the classic.
Because they had 7 potential roles in a big budget Disney movie that were taken away from them, all because Peter Dinklage declared himself the king of the dwarfs and said it was inappropriate for them to be in said movie. Well, now there's a lawsuit over this.
I remember back in 2023 when this was going on and all the little people making videos saying, well, wait, there's so few roles for us in Hollywood. We're being passed over for this. You could have cast 7 little
Peter
people.
Dinklage.
A lot of hypocrisy going on, I gotta say, from being somebody who's a little bit unique, front row seat to some...
Really? Like what? Like what do you see?
Well, you know, it's really progressive to cast literally no offense to anything, but I was a little taken back by the they're very proud to cast a Latino actress as Snow White.
Yeah.
But you're still telling the story of Snow White.
Yeah.
And 7 dwarfs.
Sure.
So, look, take a step back and look at what you're doing there.
Yeah.
I know. That makes no sense to me.
But,
you're progressive in one way, but you're still making that backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing, man? Have I done nothing to advance the cause from my soapbox? I guess I'm not loud enough. I don't know what studio that is, but they were so proud of that, and all love and respect to the actress and to the people who thought they were doing the right thing. But I'm just like, what are you doing?
Mirror, mirror on the wall, I'm predicting I'll be skipping this movie once and for all.
She doesn't need a prince to save her, and not surrounded by 7 weird people. Oh, okay, just CGI fictional goblins, I guess.
Controversy around the film began ever since we learned that there would be no Prince Charming because apparently he kissed her without consent, and also no woman needs a man to rescue her. The movie also used CGI for the 7 dwarfs rather than actors because they thought using real people would be offensive.
So this is, I do think that they have a claim here. I think that the point that's made by the actor, if you'll scroll down,
Ali
Chapman, 50 years old, he came in and he said, look, those are 7 talented little people actors who could have stepped in and taken these roles that Disney refused to allow them to take.
Megan, tell me, isn't this the one where they actually took the dwarves out of the 7 dwarves?
Yes,
Yep.
we have CGI dwarves now.
Okay, yeah, because little people didn't need jobs either.
Yeah.
But it's
Peter Dinklage wanted the whole field to himself. Yep. Went out there and was like,
the ladder down
this
behind
is
him.
insulting,
Yeah.
unless it's me.
He kicked the ladder.
Yeah, he
The
got his
ladder.
money in Hollywood, and now he's like,
Oh,
don't
nicely
hire
done,
anyone else.
Smug. The ladder.
That was nicely done.
That was low.
It was a cartoon. Those weren't actually dwarfs in the movie. They were drawn, okay? So firstly...
They were drawn as dwarfs.
No, that is...
But it's a story about dwarfs,
Dwarfs? Well, they
It's a
shouldn't be
story
called that.
about
They should be
dwarfs.
called...
They shouldn't be called dwarves.
No, they should be called people with dwarfism.
They shouldn't be called...
What's wrong with being
They shouldn't
called
be called dwarves?
Nothing, but that's not the correct
That's the
term.
story.
The
Dylan,
story
apparently
is
you're not allowed to
No,
call
Dylan
yourself
can call himself whatever.
Apparently, Dylan, you're not allowed to call yourself dwarves, apparently.
Welcome back to Tea Time with Tina. Today we're going to talk about how some cool little people might just get some big money for a lawsuit against Disney. Have you ever seen someone trip over their own shoelaces, only to stand up and confidently say, that was on purpose? Well, that's the kind of energy swirling around Disney's latest live-action remake of Snow White, with a price tag rumored to be in the hundreds of millions and characters who once upon a time were beloved by, practically everyone.
So the magical creatures are here in the movie. The CGI dwarfs are here in the movie. It works to a degree, but it's certainly going to be a financial hit for Disney, that's for sure.
And it is. We're looking at roughly, by my calculations right now, somewhere to the tune of about another $200 million loss for Snow White.
You know, and Rachel, she didn't want to share the spotlight, okay? Share the spotlight a little bit. We don't even take that much space up.
You'd think this project would be a straight shot to box office gold, but instead, it's become something of a comedic spectacle, minus the intentional comedy. Little people actors are fuming. Rumors of lawsuits are flying around like confetti. And somehow, each new detail just adds more fuel to the fire.
But now it's gonna fail, and good. And I'm glad that it's failing. I'm glad that you're giving out spoilers because no one's gonna watch this garbage. And we need to send a message to stop making these movies so that they'll wake up and actually write some original good stuff that people want to see.
Today, we're peeling back the layers of a saga that has everything: big studio decisions, outraged actors, unstoppable chatter, and the strangest casting choices this side of a magic mirror. If you're bracing yourself for a fairy tale ending, you might want to buckle up. This could turn out to be more of a cautionary tale than anything else. So let's dive in and see why folks are sharpening their pitchforks and how it all got here in the first place. It all starts with a rumor that isn't so much whispered as it is shouted from every social media rooftop. Certain little people actors are seriously thinking about dragging Disney to court. Now, one might wonder, is this a typical case of big dreams and even bigger lawyers? Possibly. But from the outside looking in, it appears that these performers have more than just a slight gripe.
And the more Disney goes towards this push for inclusiveness, the more exclusive they'll become. This has happened in hundreds of companies. It's not get woke, go broke. It's, yeah, we're going to discriminate on the basis of race, on the basis of ableism, on the basis of height, sex, you name it. And these roles that would have otherwise been available, there's not many characters that are written exclusively for little people actors.
According to buzz around the industry, a few well-known individuals with dwarfism are feeling outright snubbed. Their claim? Disney had the perfect opportunity to cast them in roles that would have showcased their talents in a high-profile film. Instead, the studio apparently opted for CGI or cartoon-like replacements for the 7 dwarfs. And not only does this allegedly take away roles specifically suited for little people, it also sets a precedent that could push them even further to the sidelines in future films.
And the people who, it seems to me, have really suffered in all this are the 6 dwarf actors who would have expected to have roles in this remake in a massive Hollywood blockbuster, who are now not going to have that experience, or the money, or the fame that may have come with that.
Jason "Wee Man" Acuna. His name gets thrown around a lot in discussions. He's been an outspoken presence, emphasizing how scarce leading or even supporting roles can be for actors with dwarfism.
It's a bad thing. I'm not agreeing with it. One, because what they're doing is pretty much you're replacing jobs that people could have as little people. Okay. Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, it's 4 dwarfs. Why are you hiring Snow White and the 7 average people?
Whether you're a fan of his or not, his argument seems straightforward. If the 7 dwarfs aren't played by little people, then what iconic roles can be? So rumor has it that the lawsuit might revolve around claims of discrimination, lost wages, missed career opportunities, or all of the above. It's almost like watching someone open a can labeled, "Here come the lawyers," and now folks are just waiting to see if everything spills out. If you think this is just legal theatrics, try telling that to the performers who see this as a major step back.
You can make them a little person and not make the little person be part of the character. But see, that doesn't work with Snow White when it's a fantasy movie. In fantasy movies, let the characters be mythical. Let them actually be little people because that is how it was written.
But casting controversies are rarely as simple as, "Hey, we just didn't hire you." There's usually an entire web of reasons. Up next is a choice so baffling, you'd think it was conjured by a magic mirror having an off day. Now don't forget to like and subscribe, because let's face it, I'm nothing without your support. Now back to the tea. So how did Disney attempt to fill these iconic roles if not with, actual humans who share physical traits with the original characters? By conjuring up what many are calling weird digital stand-ins.
Did the dwarfs make it or no?
Well, the CGI dwarfs did. Of course, that goes back to the original controversy where Peter Dinklage, a very talented little person actor, said, "Why are we doing that? We've hired a Latina actress to be Snow White. That's progressive. But you're going to hire little people to play the dwarfs? That just seems like a step backwards." And then, of course, Disney instantly buckled and said, "Okay, we're going to add magical creatures." And then the picture of the magical creatures leaked online, and everyone just had an absolute blast laughing at it.
Sure, technology can do incredible things these days. We can digitally resurrect actors from decades past. morph animals into singing sensations, and replicate entire galaxies for space operas. But here's the question. Why would you replace 7 real-life performers with artificially crafted illusions? It's as though someone said, we want them to look, well, magical, but not too magical. The result? A cast of computer-generated stand-ins
and end up deciding that they were not going to have dwarf actors play said 7 dwarfs, and that is when we started to get the image of what are known in the current movie as the 7 Bandits, which is a mishmash of different races and different cultures and one little person, which of course caused a lot of people to say, I mean, come on, what are we even talking about? What are we even doing? And ended up angering the dwarf community, the little person community.
Critics of this approach say it's not just a misguided creative choice, it's downright offensive. Losing the chance to see real actors in such an iconic story is a move that leaves many folks scratching their heads harder than Dopey might if he were real and trying to decipher a crossword puzzle. And let's not forget the comedic side effect. Did the studio think people wouldn't notice? You can't just quietly remove 7 real actors and replace them with digital creations, especially when these roles have been cherished for generations. It'd be like re-releasing The Lion King, but having the main character replaced by a floating emoji. People are going to comment and comment they have. The blame, however, doesn't stop at the studio's front doors. One actor in particular has been singled out by some in the little people community as a key player in this fiasco. You'd think by now, with his globally recognized face and critically acclaimed roles, Peter Dinklage wouldn't be at the center of a blame game.
Well, you know, we had a guest on here Sunday evening. One of our friends, Lila Hart. She's a stand-up comic. She puts a lot of the blame on Peter Dinklage. When she said it's something like Peter Dinklage showed up and he kicked out the tall ladder out from under all the dwarves before this movie.
Yet here we are, with some folks saying he's partially responsible for this entire predicament. What exactly did he do? According to various interviews, Dinklage expressed frustration over what he viewed as stereotypical portrayals of dwarf characters, particularly the 7 dwarfs.
So, but that still doesn't give him the right to do that and just, ruin opportunities for other smaller actors.
He wants to be seen as, a normal person, a normal actor. But at the same time, he also wants to be the go-to little person that's casted all these movies at the same time.
That's just it. It's me. It's like it's me and nobody else. Like all of a sudden, casting dwarf actors to play dwarf size characters is suddenly racist to Peter Dinklage, which I didn't understand.
The popular theory is that when a big-name actor like Dinklage speaks, studios listen. So if he criticized the concept of dwarfs being trotted out in live-action form, perhaps Disney panicked and thought, all right, let's just do away with the dwarfs as we know them. Except, well, not exactly. They sort of tried to have it both ways. Keep them, but transform them into something less stereotypical. The outcome, as you can guess, has not won them an award for best decision-making. Now, those same little people actors who might have auditioned for the roles, or dreamed of auditioning, are upset that a single individual's opinion could have that much sway.
Peter Dinklage spoke up about this, and that was my issue. He had, in the past, no issue cashing checks that were made for dwarf roles, like Elf and all of that. Yes, he blew away the barriers when he did his roles that weren't necessarily made for a dwarf. But the Elf role was made for a dwarf. That check cleared just fine. So now that he's gone and done that, the progression of dwarf actors, it doesn't sit right with me.
No,
this guy who is exactly what you said, what gave him the voice for all of our community?
Did Dinklage mean to overshadow the entire community's desires? Probably not. But who knows? Plus in showbiz, sometimes all it takes is one influential voice to turn a production inside out. It's like setting up a line of dominoes. One push, and the whole thing topples in ways nobody quite predicted. But instead of stepping back and thinking, let's talk to multiple voices from the community, it looks like the big shots took a shortcut. The result? Digital dwarfs, real complaints, and potential lawsuits. But Peter Dinklage's comments are just one piece of the puzzle. Another voice from a comedian who's also part of the little people community gave a perspective that's sharper than a dwarven pickaxe. Enter Lila Hart, a stand-up comic and all-around firecracker who happens to have dwarfism. Her stance on this situation could be described as colorful. Let's just say she didn't hold back when discussing Dinklage, Disney, or the entire fiasco. One memorable highlight from her commentary was the notion that Dinklage is so eager to be seen as a normal actor that he inadvertently kicked the ladder out from other Little People performers.
In the case of Peter Dinklage, like you said earlier, kicked the ladder out from under the feet of every other short actor out there, and you wind up with what you've got now with this complete travesty for Disney.
That phrase alone instantly paints a vivid picture. A single person climbing to the top, then suddenly removing the very rungs that others need. To be fair, who among us hasn't had an opinion about a role we found offensive or inaccurate? The difference here is that Dinklage's voice carries a lot of weight, and if Disney panicked and thought, we must do everything possible to avoid accusations of insensitivity, it might have listened to only Dinklage, forgetting there's an entire diverse community with varied viewpoints. Hart's remarks aren't exactly rated G. She cuts right to the core, joking that Disney's approach is about as confusing as a fork in a soup kitchen. According to her, the major fail is that the studio forgot to consult more than one perspective. In her eyes, there's comedic gold in irony. A massive production invests millions to make a beloved story come alive, only to end up angering the very people they might have intended to respect.
You're ruining the whole, this is a fantasy movie, okay? This is part of what makes Disney magical, and you're ruining it. And I already was upset that you took out 7 dwarfs from the name.
And the fact that Disney would prefer cartoon caricatures of little people over actual little people is really offensive. It's offensive, especially to me, frankly, and anybody who's born with a disability. Why not cast them in that role? It's absurd.
We often hear that show business is tough. It's competitive, draining, and full of heartbreak. For Little People actors, multiply that by 100. Roles that fit them are not exactly flooding the market. So when a global phenomenon like Snow White gets a gargantuan budget and is widely publicized, you'd think it would be the perfect chance to see new faces shining in iconic roles. Imagine being a performer with dwarfism, watching the internet swirl with rumors about Disney's live-action remake. You might be thinking, finally, an opportunity to audition for a role that was literally built for someone like me. But then the news hits. These characters are going to be replaced by what amounts to digital placeholders. It's like training your whole life to become a chef, only to be told that the new restaurant down the street has decided to use prepackaged meals instead. Disappointing doesn't even begin to cover it. It's also a publicity goldmine that Disney somehow missed. You'd think championing real-life actors in these roles would have been an easy win, at least from a marketing standpoint. Look at these talented stars stepping into these legendary parts. Instead, the conversation has turned into a comedic roast. Where do we even begin? If that's not enough, there's a sense that behind all of this, the company is trying to play it safe. But sometimes trying too hard to avoid controversy can create a different kind of scandal altogether. You'd think after years in the movie-making game, certain lessons would have stuck at Disney headquarters. This is the studio known for hits that go down in cinematic history, and also a few misfires that folks still joke about decades later. Perhaps the strangest pattern emerging is how these big-budget reimaginings keep stumbling right out of the gate. Now, we're not going to list every questionable moment in Disney's track record. We'd be here all day, and that's a separate documentary waiting to happen. But let's just say it's not shocking that some fans have lost faith in these remakes. The conversation turns into, how are they going to mess it up this time? It's almost like watching a friend who claims they can juggle flaming torches, only to discover they've never actually juggled anything before. You grab the popcorn, but not because you're expecting a triumphant show. It's more like you're bracing for the crash. In the case of Snow White, each detail that emerges seems to exasperate people more than the last. Why fuss with a classic formula that's worked for nearly a century? Why invest a rumored $215 million or so, only to make changes that frustrate some of the biggest fans of the original? It's as if someone took the phrase, "if it ain't broke, don't fix it," and just threw it out the window. Of course, we can't predict the future, and maybe all of this ends up being a footnote in cinema's history of questionable decisions. But if enough legal forms get filed, if enough comedic rants go viral, and if enough fans express their discontent, you never know what next year's big announcement might be. After all, what's more entertaining than a massive entertainment giant having to scramble to fix its own self-inflicted mess? And so we reach the end of our whirlwind journey, a multi-million-dollar remake of a beloved classic, a group of talented actors left out in the cold, and a digital workaround that has fans everywhere scratching their heads. By all accounts, this was meant to be a straightforward endeavor. Dust off Snow White, give her a fancy new dress, and watch the box office money roll in. Instead, it's become a source of endless debate, legal speculation, and facepalms that can be heard across the internet. Will the rumored lawsuits come to fruition? Can Little People actors gain back some of the spotlight that seems to have been taken from them by a flurry of questionable decisions? Maybe the real moral of the story is that you can't just wave a magic wand and replace genuine talent with a computer-rendered image. Sure, in the short term, it might keep certain folks happy or sidestep certain controversies, but in the long run, authenticity still wins hearts. So the next time you hear about a high-budget remake of a childhood favorite, you might wonder, are they going to do it justice, or are we in for another comedic train wreck? One thing is certain, if they can botch the Seven Dwarfs, they can botch just about anything. And with that, we close the book, at least for now, on this chapter of cinematic mishaps. Thanks for sticking around, and remember, if there's one thing more entertaining than fairy tales, it's watching giant studios try to modernize them without stepping on their own toes. If this saga has you rolling your eyes or rolling in laughter, hit subscribe and tap that notification bell to stay in the loop on all the future Hollywood hijinks we'll be covering. Jump down to the comments and let me know. Do you think this live-action Gambit will get flipped on its head, or is there no magical mirror that can fix this mess? I'd love to hear your take. And there you have it, one of the strangest twists in modern movie making, starring an iconic tale turned upside down. Whether the story ends in a fairy tale resolution or a courtroom showdown, it's definitely one for the Hollywood history books. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, sometimes the most unbelievable plots don't come from fantasy, but from the studios trying to adapt them. Until next time, stay tuned, stay safe, and stay informed, only on Tea Time with Tina.